I think you still just got to be incredibly disappointed with what we saw on Saturday night in Chapel Hill against the Tar Heels. Was that Duke's only shot this season at winning the ACC regular season title? What else stood out? A good conversation coming up on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with JJ Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. It's so great to have you here with us on this Tuesday, February 6th, 2024. Excited to be talking about everything going on in the life of Duke athletics. We've got a men's basketball conversation here for you today as Duke took on the University of North Carolina over the weekend, and unfortunately, the Blue Devils lose by 9 points. Ryan Lommen at the Duke Nation will be with us here on today's show to talk about the dissatisfying feeling that was Saturday evening there in Chapel Hill. Please follow us on social media at LO_Blue Devils. I'm there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. Make sure you follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever it is that you get your podcasts, and a big push over to our YouTube channel, continuing to climb to 2,000 subscribers over there at YouTube. Do us a favor, subscribe, like this video, share it with your friends. Again, just really do appreciate all the support that you guys offer us. So without further ado, let's bring him on in. Our good friend Ryan Lommen is back with us once again. The time is greatly appreciated, Ryan. We've had a couple of days to reflect on this. We ourselves get the 24 to 48 hour rule following these Duke losses. I think we both feel a little bit better today than we did on Saturday evening.
Yeah, definitely. I think just vibe-wise, feeling much better. I think the concerns are still there, though, and I feel like it's the same concerns that we've had most of the season. But yeah, I'm feeling a little better today. We could bounce back game, tomorrow or Wednesday, whenever. Against who was it, Boston College or
Notre Dame, and then Boston College on the weekend.
Yeah, Notre Dame. So I said it over the weekend too. Like, that's the light at the end of the tunnel, right? You got 3 home games against 3 teams that you should be able to take care of business as long as we stay healthy. So get back on track. The issue is these wins aren't going to do much for the resume. It's just kind of like that morale booster, hopefully, and they can right the ship a little bit, just because what seemed to maybe be the game plan on Saturday and feeding Flip and doing the pick and roll stuff, they just kind of went away from that. And so try to get back to what makes this team good. And so hopefully they can get back on track pretty quickly with the competition they have.
Yeah, a big stretch of games here for Duke. They've got 3 straight home games followed by 3 straight road games, and then 3 games until they play North Carolina again. So there's kind of your look at the last 10 games of the season for this Duke basketball team. 3 straight at home, 3 straight on the road, and then just 3 more until the Tar Heels come to Cameron Indoor to close out the regular season. Energy and effort is what John Shire said after the game. Jared McCain and Jeremy Roach said the same things when they met with the media following Saturday's 9-point loss to North Carolina. Was that evident to you watching the game on TV, Ryan? Like, was that fair for them to point out, you think?
Yeah, I'm actually very happy it was pointed out too. We didn't get like a cliche like, oh, like they just were the better team tonight. It was like Coach Shire immediately was like, no, it was energy and effort. And for him and the staff, obviously, he's very good about what he's going to say publicly about his team. But I'm gonna assume behind the scenes there was some stronger words used towards the team, because if you can't get up to play against North Carolina in Chapel Hill like the guys did last year, it's kind of embarrassing. Like, I'm not trying to be super down about it, but like as a fan, like even I was like, the energy in my house, me being like mainly the only fan here, was super high. My wife was excited, and my son, who's 3.5, like he knew Duke was playing tonight and Tar Heels are icky and all that stuff. Like, energy was good, and like I get it, it's apples to oranges, but like if you can't come into a game like that with energy and passion, and McCain has done it against the worst of the worst teams, obviously could do it against North Carolina, but the energy from the returning guys like Mitchell, Proctor, and Flip was very disappointing. I'm glad it was called out, which means if it was called out publicly, it was addressed behind the scenes, and hopefully that can change going forward. So, but yeah, very disappointing, especially when they got down by 10 in the first half. It just seemed like we were trading baskets and nothing was changing there as well. So hopefully that changes going forward, especially with the 3 home games.
I love that you said that, because I was dialed in Saturday evening as well, right? Like, I made Saturday a day where once the basketball game came around, I made sure to be in my own space, but I was animated. I was into it. I'm clapping religiously after every bucket. So we were locked in. It just unfortunately wasn't reflected out there on the floor by the Duke basketball player. So 5th loss of the year for Duke, 3rd in the ACC. And you mentioned that first half. Closing down 22-22 was the score that a lot of people are pointing back to with the Duke basketball team, because from there, North Carolina goes on a 23-13 run to close the first half, giving them that 10-point margin. And for whatever reason, these end of the first halves have been a little difficult for Duke.
Yeah, when I started to get concerned with how the game was going to go was when they pulled Baycott and Davis out in the first half, and we had Flip still on the floor, and we did not take advantage by any stretch of the imagination. We should have gone up a few points there at least, or won those minutes. And I don't even know if we even were even with them. I think we might have lost those minutes. And we were attacking. We were feeding Flip when Baycott was on the floor, doing high ball screens, getting him out of the key. And then he was off the floor. It's like we just stopped getting the ball to Flip, and it just didn't make any sense to me. The body language is poor regardless. And that's when my concern started. I was like, if we're not going to take advantage and just go after these backups who normally only, like Jalen Washington stuff, they only play, and Withers less than, at this point in ACC play, 10, 12 minutes a game, guys who Flip should be able to go to town on. If we're not going to take advantage of those minutes while they're out there, I don't know what we're going to do the rest of the game, because Baycott held his own for the most part against Flip and played pretty good defense, and they had good help defense and everything as well. But when they didn't do that, I was starting to get concerned, like, well, what are we going to do the rest of the game when we have some mismatches? And then Ryan Young came in, had some good hustle plays, but brought a little bit of energy, but just didn't have his best night handling the ball or scoring the ball either. So that didn't help when Flip was out. But yeah, that's where my concerns really started, was in that first half there. Yeah,
and then in the second half, as we talked about on yesterday's show, and as a lot of people have been discussing, the margin or deficit for Duke, gets to 8, and that's about it. It keeps extending up to 13, and Duke cuts it back down to 8, and never at any point is it able to get down to 6, where you've got kind of a 2-possession feel to it, a stop, a couple of 3-point buckets, and you're right back in it. Duke just couldn't get there. With 30 seconds to go, Duke finally got the margin down to 7, but then we had the Baycott walk-off dunk there at the end. And, yeah, that was all she wrote for the Duke basketball team. I want to talk a little bit more about this loss. We'll do some individual performances. We'll look at the box score and more after we take our first time out here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. What a big time of year it is. It is Super Bowl week, and we're fired up over at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. What a game we've got in Las Vegas, Super Bowl 58, San Francisco 49ers, Kansas City Chiefs. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which player will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more win. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL and the Locked On Podcast Network. Back on Locked On Blue Devils alongside my pal Ryan Lommen at the Duke Nation on Twitter. Again, we take a look at Saturday. North Carolina had a 4.5-point spread in their favor. They're able to cover that. I just mentioned the Super Bowl a moment ago. Go check it out, FanDuel.com/lockedon. The line continues to fluctuate. San Francisco 1.5 one day. They're up by a 2-point favorite the next. I don't know, man. I don't know that we're going to fully see it swing over to Kansas City. But what are you thinking about the Super Bowl coming up on Sunday, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm super excited for it. It's really hard to bet against Mahomes at this point. I think they're a different team.
I'm in that boat, man.
But it's kind of like, how can you bet against Kansas City? I'm very excited. I think McCaffrey and obviously Kittle and Debo and Purdy are great. I don't want to say I have a rooting interest in this game as a Vikings fan, that I don't really have a hatred towards either. I do, as I've matured, I do tend to enjoy greatness. And so like watching Mahomes play and do what he's doing is exciting. I'd probably lean Chiefs just because of Mahomes, but I do think this is going to be a really good matchup and an entertaining one at that. So.
And who doesn't love a Super Bowl Sunday, right? Just the theatrics of it all. I mean, we only get one of these days a year, so I certainly hope everybody's able to enjoy it and that sort of thing. All right, back to the basics, back to what we're here for. Duke basketball losing on Saturday against North Carolina. Duke had 3 20-point scores. They had a massive difference in their favor in points in the paint, and yet it ultimately just does not matter. What are some of those other storylines that you thought kind of told the story in this game in particular, Ryan?
Yeah, I think the one that I'm not sure is being talked about a lot is the Mark Mitchell versus Ingram one. And I don't think he was on Ingram a lot of the time. They were doing a lot of switching and stuff as well. So I'm not putting the Harrison Ingram performance on Mark Mitchell, but just the fact that those two are very similar as far as position and size goes. And Mitchell, without his 3-point shot this season, just isn't as effective. When he drove the lane a lot, he was being met by multiple bodies, and so he couldn't get to the rim like he has been a lot lately. And the other thing I just want to shout out is, man, Jared McCain. I haven't been on the podcast in a while, but Jared McCain is such a fun player to watch. And
absolutely.
I don't know. I have no insight on how long he's going to be at Duke. I hope it's for as long as possible, because he is turning into one of my most recent favorites at Duke, just based on how hard he plays. The dude, he's kind of like a Steph Curry as far as his motor and just running around constantly. He had a double-double in rebounds. I mean, for a guard his size, that's insane. It just goes to show you that his ball instincts are there. He's always following the ball, watching the ball, moving without the ball, moving on defense. And so just watching a player like that bring that energy every single night, and then just to see a lot of the other guys not be able to follow suit with the guy who's a freshman coming in and be able to do that is interesting, to say the least. So hopefully McCain can keep it up. I mean, that if McCain keeps playing this and we can get a Filipowski back to where he was, I know his stat line shows 22 and whatever, but I think, 1 of 6 from 3. And if you watch the game, the eye test flip just wasn't the same flip, an All-American flip that we need in terms of this rivalry goes. So if we can get McCain and Roach doing what they continue to do, Proctor, obviously, we don't need to beat a dead horse there. He played terrible on the offensive side, did a good job on RJ, but not a good offensive game. If we can just get like a game where they all click, I do think this team is a very, very good team. It's just they haven't been able to put it together consistently, especially even just from a game-to-game basis for 40 minutes. And so I feel like we say this a lot with a lot of Duke teams. If they can put it together, they're a scary team.
Yeah.
You just got to do it, man.
It is true, though. This team has got a lot of talent. They can really score the basketball. I think they get after you defensively. First time in the John Shire era that an opponent has scored over 90 points against Duke. I want to go back to Jared McCain for a second and his kind of star power that's suddenly emerging. Exciting to see everybody nationally now talking about him a little bit. And I really enjoyed kind of the insight that we got yesterday on the podcast with Josh Cox, who was there covering the game with this Duke basketball team in particular. This is going to surprise a lot of people, but it was a major recruiting day for North Carolina when you're able to host Duke in the atmosphere that was. So much so that Mac Brown and his football staff had 25 high-profile recruits out there on the floor. And prior to the game, they're sectioned right over back in the hallways near the Duke locker room. And the guys that are being recruited to play football only want to see Jared McCain as he walks back in to the locker room with their phones out. He's got such a big social media following, but I just thought that was such a cool story to hear about prior to the game. And it just speaks to I don't know how long he's going to be on campus playing for Duke, but one hell of a basketball player. His joy is infectious, and his peers really want to know what the heck he's up to. And here we have these top football recruits wanting to just get a glimpse of him.
Yeah, he's just a positive kid that, like, you don't get this much in this day and age of, like, an 18-year-old who comes out and just doesn't care what anybody thinks of him, obviously with the nails and stuff, like no care at all, always smiling in videos on TikTok and on the Duke main YouTube channel, always talking about how he's just so happy to be at Duke. He's living such a fortunate, privileged, and blessed life. Like, this kid is just like what you hope your kid grows up to be like. And it's infectious, man. And to be honest with you, as a 31-year-old, and I'm on TikTok, but like, I knew McCain was a big deal as far as social media goes coming into it. I didn't get it until like hearing a story like that, or you read tweets about him and how this younger generation is just like clinging to Jared McCain. Like, it's super cool. And the fact that he's on our team is great. If there's an example of a guy who could really capitalize on NIL and stick around for more years than he probably needs to, and I do think his style of play and his energy and stuff, the NBA will be there for him, whether it's after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years. I'm not making my case. Go do what you got to do to get your money. But like, he's the type of guy where it'll be an interesting case where, is he going to stick around and make college money with TikTok and everything that he can, or does he want to get to the NBA earlier? So it's really cool to see. And that's an awesome story as well. And yeah, I was at the Syracuse game earlier this year. Just my wife even noticed how much he's just a motor. Like, he's just everywhere all the time. So love having him, big fan, and hope he sticks around for a while. We
talked a lot about kind of his rebounding ability. We've given him a lot of praise for that because it's great. I mean, he had 7 rebounds in the first half, finishes with 11. That's the most on Duke. Has that double-double with 23 points, but only 2 3-point shots made. Some of the finishes that he had, we've seen it in glimpses, but this was a game in particular where all of his action was at the rim. His touch was incredible because so many of his runners and lay-ins there, you think they're hitting back rim and falling off, and yet he's got the perfect spin, the perfect touch, and it results in 2 points for Duke.
Yeah, if you look at Duke's roster and you think of guys who can get to the rim, Jared McCain's probably not even in the top 4 or 5 of those guys. And even all season, he's made great plays at the rim and made some really fantastic layups. But like, this game was kind of like he knew his 3-point shot wasn't where it needed to be, and he shot 2 of 6. He ended up hitting a couple there, but he kind of knew, like, if I can get to the paint and get into the rim, he was fantastic around the rim there and finishing great. So I thought that was a bright spot as well for him, that going forward, if he knows that his 3-point shot isn't falling, or maybe just notices as a guy who used to play basketball, you just know when your shot doesn't feel right that night, you make an impact any other way. And he went out and got 11 rebounds. He made plays at the rim. He's becoming a really good defender as well. So yeah, if keeping it positive, McCain's a bright spot. Roach, I thought, played pretty well as well defensively there. This team just got the bench. I don't want to go back too negative, but the short bench and North Carolina playing so fast, I think, is what hurt these guys, especially the shooting from beyond the arc. Man, when you're dog tired and then you're trying to chuck up a couple threes at the end there, it's tough to make them at the end of a game. So the lack of bench depth there and with North Carolina running as much as they do was just a recipe for a not good 3-point shooting night.
And then just on the defensive end of the floor, an inability to create turnovers for the Duke basketball team. North Carolina only with 5. Duke had 11. In the grand scheme of things, it's not terrible, but it's a big difference there. And you look at points off turnovers, we've got the stats up on the screen if you're watching here on YouTube. Duke 19 points, or excuse me, North Carolina 19 points off turnovers, just 7 for Duke. That's a 12-point difference. It's a 9-point game. In so many ways, that is a big swing, a big factor in how this game was decided.
Yep. Yeah, I'm no math expert, but when you're losing the points off turnovers like that, it's not going to go your way. And I think a lot of people have mentioned the turnovers, and I don't think it's been a huge issue with Duke this year. But when Proctor was playing the way he was, and I think he ended up with only 1 turnover, but a lot of forced passes from throughout the team, and the offense just never really seemed to get into a rhythm. And to me, that's on the guy running the show in Proctor. And so hopefully, I don't expect this to be a bad. Proctor had been playing well leading up to this game, so sure, it was a bad game. I'm not super concerned about Proctor. I think he's mature enough and has the skill set to wipe the slate clean and come back against Notre Dame in this next 3 games and get it back.
So what's next for the Duke basketball team? That's a big question that many of us are asking, and we will begin to answer that question after our last time out here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number 1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. with all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Final few moments here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. I'm JJ Jackson alongside Ryan Lommen at the Duke Nation on Twitter. Tell me a little bit about your page for people who might not be aware, and then Crazie Cast, a show that you're a part of. Give us a rundown.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow me on Twitter or X at the Duke Nation, and Instagram. I run an Instagram page with another buddy of mine at the Duke Nation there. And then, we have Crazie Cast with Field of 68. So we try to go live once a week, and we try to record some audio-only podcasts. So I'll do that with Zion at Duke NBA and Russ at Duke Better, a couple bigger guys in the Duke community. So love doing it. We get fan interaction as well there. They're live, so you can come in and give comments, and we can see them. And so, it's awesome, man. I appreciate the shout-out.
All right, so North Carolina gets the win. They're now 2 games clear of Duke and Virginia right now, actually. They're in the loss column. They've got 3 losses in conference play. Did Duke lose an opportunity? Did they miss an opportunity, you think, on Saturday night?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the odds are right now, but Duke winning the ACC regular season, to me, as like looking at how these 2 teams are playing, just between, I haven't watched a lot of Virginia because I'm sorry, I'm not going to bore myself to death on a Tuesday or Wednesday night.
I think you're fair in doing that, yeah.
Between Duke and Carolina, I mean, you can just like tell the difference in the teams right now. North Carolina looks like they might not lose another game in this ACC regular season. They will, but like they just look really good, and Duke has been decent in ACC play, but they haven't been beating some good competition. But yeah, I mean, Duke has 3 games at home and then 3 road games. I can't imagine Duke's gonna go undefeated in that 6-game stretch, especially the ones on the road. UNC's obviously got to go travel to a few other places as well, but it's that, I mean, if you were going to have a chance at the regular season title, that was it. You had to win that game. Crazier things have happened, and I, as a Duke fan, it's always funny because we're like, oh, the regular season isn't our goal. We never win it anyways. We're shooting for both tournaments, the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament. I don't really completely buy into all that. I'm sure there's some tweets of mine from younger me who might not back that up, but I think that was your opportunity. If you wanted to steal the ACC after North Carolina's gone after the start they had, you had to win that one. And just the way Duke's playing, I can't see a way in which we either go undefeated or lose only 1 more, and they're sitting atop the ACC at the end of the season with the way UNC's playing. So.
Yeah, Duke basketball back in action tomorrow at home against Notre Dame. North Carolina is in action tonight at home. So another home game for the Tar Heels taking on Clemson. It was last Saturday that Clemson had the 1-point loss to Duke. This past Saturday, they had a 1-point loss to Virginia. And I think that's kind of the big thing is you got to find teams in this conference who are going to be up to the test of beating North Carolina. And I don't know that you're going to find that many. And now that Duke's got this kind of two-loss deficit trying to chase that regular season title, it just feels really difficult to make that happen.
Yeah, it does, man. And it's tough because like you look at, you can say UNC went to Georgia Tech and lost. They can lose road games. Well, that you can also look at that and say, well, Duke was up next at home on their schedule. Like, not that in college there's not many schedule losses, but like if you're going to find one, and Georgia Tech isn't a good team by any stretch of the imagination, but like if there was a look ahead game, if I've ever seen one, it was that one. And so Clemson doesn't scare me too much. Clemson seems like they're the same team every year with Brad Brownell. They go nuts in non-conference. They have a good start to ACC play, and then they just start losing all these games by a couple points. And so I do kind of feel bad for them there. But UNC is going to have to kind of crap the bed a little bit if they want to lose this ACC. And Virginia now is starting to, from what I'm looking at in stats and schedule and results and stuff, they're back at it and kind of doing what Tony Bennett does and finish ACC play strong. So I'm not even convinced we'll finish in front of them, and we still got to play them as well. So it sucks because I feel like if there was another year to win the ACC regular season, this would have been the one to do it. Obviously, you still have UNC there, but the ACC is as down as it's probably going to be, at least these last couple of years. So if you wanted to take advantage, now is the time to do so. But we still got the ACC tournament. So
yeah, a lot of infighting with these teams. And again, this is a big stretch of games coming up for Duke with 3 at home starting tomorrow against Notre Dame, Boston College on Saturday. And then we do have a tricky turnaround. The last Saturday, Monday game, one was on the road, one was for this one for Duke. Both games are being played at Cameron Indoor, but on a short turnaround. It's a Wake Forest team that continues to improve year after year under head coach Steve Forbes. So there are a lot of dudes there with Wake Forest. And I know we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but just kind of looking at this stretch of home games, Ryan, like this is definitely where Duke needs to capitalize. They need to bounce back and get back kind of to their winning ways and not let a loss like Saturday carry over.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest thing that I'm looking for is just how they do it. Like everybody can say, well, win is a win. And it definitely is. Like I'll take a crappy win over or win over a loss. Or
a good loss. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'd much rather have that. But like, I want to see how they win. Like what's the body language like? What happens when they get punched in the throat or punched in the jaw when they go on a run and somebody stops them and fights back? So like just seeing the body language, I want to see like strong game plans where like even as a fan, you can be like, man, that's their game plan. Give the ball to Flip in the post, do high pick and rolls, have McCain moving like crazy. Like there should be some sort of game plan that you can see and just see them attack that. Because against UNC, it seemed like they had it for a little bit. And then after that, there just wasn't a game plan. It was just keep up pace with these guys because that's all we can do. So not only results, but how they play is going to be important, I think, and getting them their confidence back that they need to make a run here late in the season.
Excited to see what happens. Excited to follow along for this next stretch of games, and very excited for your next visit here on Locked On Blue Devils. Ryan, one more time, kind of give me a plug for your account and then the show that you're on and where people can find all your work.
Yeah, absolutely. At the Duke Nation on the X, at the Duke Nation on Instagram, and at Crazie Cast, Crazie Cast on X. And yeah, man, we're I don't know how much we're going to be going live this week, but in the following weeks as ACC play starts wrapping up, and we're going live a lot, and then obviously into tournament time. So getting excited.
Yeah, check it all out. Ryan, thanks for the time. We'll do this again soon, okay?
Appreciate you, JJ.
All right, that's Ryan Lommen joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, and that's going to wrap us up here today. What a fun show that was. Let's hope Duke can get back in the win column coming up tomorrow against those Notre Dame Fighting Irish. That'll do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.